Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wisdom from the Field. Sitting here today with Rabbi Alex Kaller from Chabad Russian Center of South Florida. Welcome, Rabbi Kaller.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So I've heard that you've recently celebrated the opening of your new building, which you shared with me. It's open for a little time, but you just celebrated it. I'd love to hear all about that. But, before we get into that, could you share with us a little bit about who you are? What's Chabad of Russian Center of South Florida like?
Who am I? Born in 1976 in Russia, Moscow, Russia. Secular family, zero Yiddishkeit. Never heard of a mezuzah, Yom Kippur, or anything of that nature. The only Jewish component, besides knowing that I'm Jewish and having a strong Jewish identity, because it was something that my parents were proud of, but not on any religious level at all. On a cultural and ethnic level, definitely nothing to do with any religious observance. Maybe the only Jewish thing in my childhood that I remember is matzah. Matzah on Pesach, I think that's something that we did have. I'm not sure from which age I remember matzah. And the matzah was sold in a regular bakery. Not a regular bakery. There were a few bakeries in Moscow, maybe one or two, where they would sell this matzah, which tasted terrible. But it was sold next to chametz, but it was kind of a more of a traditional thing. And again, my first Pesach Seder in my life, I think I was 13, was a basket of bread and a basket of matzah kind of on the same table. But maybe that's the only Yiddishkeit that I remember. Of course, Jewish grandparents on both sides who spoke Yiddish or understood Yiddish. My grandmother's strudels and gefilte fish, again, but nothing at all whatsoever in terms of any religious observance. And then in 1989, it was the time where the big aliyah to Israel was taking place. Over 1 million Soviet Jews were leaving Soviet Union, former Soviet Union. My uncle and aunt were doing aliyah. My parents were thinking about it. Maybe it was a very tumultuous and very dangerous time, rather, in Russia. My father started doing some business, and business was dangerous. And I was in the 9th grade, and in some kind of a school-wide competition, I was chosen by my classmates to be the captain of the team of my class. I don't remember what the competition was. And somehow we were marching something patriotic, something, I don't know, marching. And I was leading the class, and they announced my last name, Kaller. And that day I'm walking home from school, and a kid from 11th grade or 12th, I don't remember, was the top grade. He was the oldest grade. He says, "Is that you? Your name they announced? Kaller?" I said, "Yeah." So what kind of name is that? What kind of kike name is that?
Hmm.
And I said, "Then what kind of name you have, you Russian lowlife?" And that's it. We parted ways. But the next day on a recess, him and 4 other guys from his class cornered me in and said, "What do you say about the Russians?" So I didn't say about Russians. I said about this kid. Whatever. Got beaten up. And eventually my
Wow.
parents pulled it out of me. I didn't want to tell them. And my father, as I learned later, I did not know this, went to the school the next day and had a whole talk with the principal. And the incident was kind of exhausted. That's it. Months, a few weeks later, I get summoned to the principal's office. What did I do? And she tells me, a Russian woman, remember her like today. She says, I went to some regional conference of educators, and there was a young man that spoke there, and he is heading a Jewish youth center. And if you're interested, here's a number. And she gives me a piece of paper with a number. And in my class, there was another Jewish kid. I asked him, "Did you also get the number?" No. There was another girl in an opposite class. I said, "Did you get it?" No. So 2, 3 Jews, there weren't many in my school that I knew they were Jewish. I asked them, and apparently I realized that I was chosen to be the
Hmm.
eternal Jew. I don't know. The number was given to me. I called up. I was curious. And the guy said, yeah, I teach Ivrit and I teach Parshat Shavua. It was, I don't remember his name. I don't remember what he looked like at this point. Kipas Ruga, that I don't remember. And he was somebody who worked at that time at the Rabbi Steinsaltz yeshiva. There was a yeshiva opened up in Moscow, which there was already, as I learned later, there was a Chabad yeshiva, but this was a Steinsaltz yeshiva. And he was part of that. And I think at that time, the Israeli government was sending people like shluchim, kind of shlichei aliyah or something like that, to teach people Hebrew, because there was a massive aliyah. They were trying to prepare people before. And I called up. He says, "Come, we already started, but you'll catch up." And it wasn't the same. I was 13 years old. It was on my subway line. So my parents said, "Yeah, go," although it was in the middle of a city. And I went on Sunday. And was my first time in my life I learned something Jewish. And then I heard about the first time I learned something Parsha. So he tells me, if you want to continue, you need to buy a textbook in Hebrew. Where do I buy it? It says Marin Rosh Shul. Marin Rosh Shul, never heard of it. Once in my life, in my earlier years, my parents took me to the choral synagogue in Moscow. We were walking somewhere in the center. They said, this is a Jewish church. And we walked inside, and I was there. Like, okay, nice. But I never heard of this Marin Rosh synagogue. Comes out, the Marin Rosh synagogue was also on my line of subway. And a few days later, after school, I went there. And I walked into this old building. That's the building that later burned down in 1993. It was an old wooden building, which was hard to describe. I never felt that. Maybe when you go to the Ohel, sometimes you feel it. But you walked in and it was like, it was something like that. Old wooden dilapidated building. And I bought the book. And as I was walking out, I was going down the stairs. Somebody comes up the stairs, says, "Oh, you're learning Hebrew?" I said, "Yeah, I just got a book. I don't know Hebrew yet." Says, "You know Aleph Beis?" I said, "No." Says, "Come, I'll teach you." So he takes me to the shul. Says, "You don't need this book." Takes out Tilos Hashem. And he says, "Let's go. Aleph Beis, Beis Gimel Daled Hey. Can you repeat it?" Okay, repeat it again, repeat it again, repeat it again. "And could you repeat it backwards?" I said, "Yeah." "Okay, next line, next line." And basically, like 40 minutes later, he taught me the whole Aleph Beis. Gave me a little Tilos Hashem siddur, which did not have one word in English or in Russian. Those old, small kahos siddurim, which look like they have this crocodile binding. And that's it. Off I went. Gave me actually a pile of photocopied brochures about Yud Beis Tammuz, Shavuos, Pesach, these little books that Shamir used to put out. So there were no books. There was just photocopies of that. Went home. And I started coming once in a while to the shul after school. Sometimes this guy was there. Sometimes he was not. It was about Shuba. And I learned, and he told me, and I befriended some other people, that there is a Jewish school, there's a Chabad school. And here I'm getting beaten up for being Jewish, and here there is a Jewish school. And they said, "Yeah, we have a school." This was the first Chabad school that Chabad opened up in Moscow. It was just 1 year old at the time.
What year is this?
This is
90?
1980. This whole thing happened in 1990. This is Tovshin Mem Tes, Tovshin Nun. This was still Mem Tes, I think. No, this was Nun already. I'm sorry. This was Nun. Tovshin Nun, 1990. Basically, I convinced my parents that I want to go to this school. My parents, without realizing where this is going to end, transferred me. And the school was on a ladies' gallery in that central Moscow synagogue. Boys were on the right, girls were on the left. And that was the first school led by Reb Zev Koravsky, who was the principal then. And off I went. That year, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, I think actually that was the year when, never mind. So it was the first Yom Kippur of my life. And my classmate and a friend who was in a Chabad camp in Gan Yisrael that summer told me, let's go to the shul for Yom Kippur. We can stay there overnight. Okay, let's go. And we went to the shul. Nobody told me that I have to fast. That was omitted somehow. I didn't get that memo. And basically halfway through Yom Kippur, I ran to the local grocery store. I got myself a massive loaf of bread and a carton of milk, gulped it down, and went to fast more. And but this was the first Yom Kippur, and
Wow.
at Motzei Yom Kippur, this friend takes me over to the guy who was a mile, and he says, "This is my friend Alex. He wants to have a bris." I'm like, "Shut up! I don't want to have no bris." And the guy says, "You have any allergies? No. You have any medications you can take? No. You ever had hepatitis? No. Okay, tomorrow 10 o'clock." And tomorrow 10 o'clock. So I said, "I don't know." Talking to myself, I'm in a Jewish school. I'm a Jew. I know I have to have a bris, but I really wasn't planning on it. And tomorrow 10 o'clock, I showed up. Uh, Rabbi Avram Genyan. I don't know if you know that name. Actually, recently I just saw something about him, of him coming to the Rebbe. He was a war veteran. He was handicapped, without one leg. He was in charge of all the underground prison in Moscow many years. At that time already, this didn't have to be undercover and illegal. But he was my sandik. And again, I can more stories with that as well, with the wonderful and holy organization called Ezras Achim, that were that was sending the money there and collecting and sending medical supplies for this brisson. To my parents, I sold, it's going to be American. Everything is American syringes, American, everything is disposable, everything is sterile. I thought I'm going to have an American flag there. And basically, I don't know, somehow halfway through this procedure, they ran out of Novocaine, lidocaine, whatever, the anesthesia, or they didn't give me enough. So I was feeling it halfway through. I was screaming, and the Rabbi Avram Gani was sitting there singing, "Niet, niet, nikavo." And I was like, remember thinking to myself, "Why are you singing?" Now I realize he was probably singing just to dull my screaming, because, and that's it. So continued studying in a Chabad school. The whole story, which I already retold and told, I think it was even written somewhere, that happened to me Hanukkah, because Hanukkah life, I was chosen to light the menorah on behalf of Russia. I think that was the first moment, which many years later I realized I always lamented that I don't have any personal experiences with the Rebbe. Then I realized at that moment this was my personal experience, because I was
Wow.
I was lighting the menorah on behalf of the Russian Jews, on behalf of Russia. And that moment, I
The
guess,
Rebbe was there
the Rebbe saw
watching.
me. Not I guess, the Rebbe saw me. And actually, I have another story connected to that. And somehow a year and a half later, which if at this point anybody would tell me I'm going to end up in yeshiva, I would not believe it, because I didn't have any such plans. But somehow a year and a half later, I ended up in Yeshiva Gdola Lubavitch, London, where I sold my parents, together with the help of shluchim in Moscow, a boat, saying that I'm going to study computers and jurisprudence. And jurisprudence was in the Gemara, and computers, I had a little Tetris that was like the only computer for the whole yeshiva. And I ended up in yeshiva in London,
Wow.
where over the course of 2 years that I was there, by the time I came there, I was almost 16. I walked out of that yeshiva, I was 18. And, I learned Aleph Beis 2 years earlier. So I definitely
Wow.
did not think or plan or even fathom that I'm going to become a shliach or anything like that. Somehow, after those 2 years, thanks to Rabbi Gordon and Rabbi Hertz, but Rabbi Gordon more had probably the biggest transformative role in my life. I walked out of there saying, I'm going to shlichus, and this is what I'm going
Wow.
to do, and I'm going to work with the Russian community. And I was planning to return back to Moscow, and every Bein Hazmanim and every break, every Pesach and every summer, every friend of mine traveled the world with Mekar Shlichus. I went back to Russia every time, and because really I was planning to go there, and I worked there, and ran a Moscow camp as a director for 2 years. The first time that on a very large scale, Bochrim were sent to Russia and to Ukraine. I didn't do the Ukrainian part, but I did the Russian part. To do Zdorim, we had over, I think, 200 Bochrim or so, to over 100 cities. Maybe I'm a little bit off with the numbers, but then seminars for Rosh Kol. So I ran that as well. And while studying in later, then eventually shlichus, yeshiva shlichus, then smicha, 770. And then again, it's a long story, but ended up by fluke, ended up in Miami on Hanukkah of 99 while cutting Seder. And because the weather was miserable in New York, and my chavros and I said, we're going to just skip town. And we skipped town together with 5 other guys and came to Miami, where my chavros's uncle had an apartment, which was empty. And on the final day when we were supposed to leave, we decided to rent a boat and came to Sunny Isles, to the very street on which
Huh.
I'm sitting right now, where our shul is.
Wow.
And they told us, go up Collins Avenue, you'll see the boats. We missed all the boats, which is a massive all-over park over here with massive amount of boats and charters. Somehow we came over here. And on this corner, there was a tiny little boat rental. And they had 2 jet skis and a tiny little boat. We saw that boat. We went to rent the boat, and suddenly I see it says Moscow Video, Russian movie rental place. And I walked inside. I was the only Russian. I was curious. I started talking to the lady behind the counter. And is there a Russian-speaking shul in Miami? No. I said, but you have enough of Russian community to support your video rental business, right? She says, yeah. I said, how many Russian Jews in Miami? I think she told me maybe 7,000, 8,000. I said, okay. And is the Russian-speaking rabbi in Miami? And she said, no, I don't think
Huh.
so. So I said, okay, wait. Miami has a Russian-speaking community. Nobody's working with them. And a few years later, when I started looking for shlichus, I said, maybe I'm not going to go back to Russia. Maybe I want to create something on my own. So I called Rabbi Korf, whom I didn't know, who my friend Zalman Korf, his youngest son, made an introduction. And I said, Rabbi Korf, hi, Alex Kaller, you need me. So he said, that's great. Why do I need you? I said, because you have Russian Jews. Nobody's working with them. So he says, call me in a year. So I started calling him once a month. Every Rosh Chodesh, I called him. Rabbi Korf, that's me. They're getting assimilated
Wow.
as we speak. They're converting right now.
Determined.
Rabbi Korf, you need me. Like, the intermarriage is high. And by Kinus HaShluchim next year, the upcoming Kinus HaShluchim, I think I called him the first time in May, June. This was obviously in Rosh Chodesh Kislev around.
Right.
Somebody showed me Rabbi Korf. I didn't know what he looks like. And I pinned him against the wall in 770. I said, Rabbi Korf, I'm the one calling you. Let me try. So he told me, listen, try what? You're not married. You're a bacher. I can't bring you. I said, listen, don't give me any titles. Just let me try. So he said, give me a few weeks to think, to do some research, and let me see. 2 months later, I ended up coming to Miami. Actually, now it was a February of 3 months later of 2002. So right now it's exactly
Wow.
24 years since I
24
landed
years.
here
Wow.
for the first time, without knowing one soul, Chabad or not Chabad, or for sure Russian community. They gave me a bed in yeshiva. I ate in yeshiva. Rabbi Korf gave me a 1987 Saab 900 without air conditioning that somebody donated to yeshiva, and I started running around town looking for Russian Jews. And that's pretty much it. I don't think it's much different than any other shliach that goes out there. And the rest is history.
Wow. So 1 second. So at what point did you get married from after you moved to Florida?
So I moved to Florida in February, and around Tammuz time, I think off time, I got engaged, and
And you moved straight back.
that's it. Yeah,
Wow. Wow. Beautiful. Thanks for sharing that
and then I was made an
story.
official shliach. And the
Wow.
record says, "Listen, I'm giving you 12 months." So I was lucky enough. I don't know how many other shluchim at that time already were getting it. I got a $2,000 a month salary from Rabbi Korf. Says, I'm giving you 12 months. In 12 months, you learn how to swim. Good. Not. Sorry about that. And that's it. My wife
Wow.
worked at the land of yeshiva, and she taught as a teacher there, and I was learning how to swim.
Wow. Huh. So fast forward, what you know what did your shlichus turn into over the past 22 years?
What did the shlichus turn into? There is, thank God, big community. Probably today have built from the ground 4,500 households right now in our database, and growing. Again, Florida is growing, and COVID helped. And as I joke every time, that wise policies of many other governors in the United States help also, because people are leaving. Actually, lately we have a lot of people coming from the Bay Area, from California, Northern California, other places. But in general, Miami always attracted people um, from Northeast and all over the place. And today we just completed pretty much the construction of the 6-story, 40,000 square foot building with a mikvah, with a shul. About 250 people this past Shabbos attended.
Wow. A regular Shabbos is
This
250
regular
people.
Shabbos is 200,
Wow.
people plus. Baruch
Wow.
Hashem. Yeah. And the mikvah, the first mikvah in Sunny Isles, preschool. And now for the past few years, my wife started the Tamim elementary school. So about 180 children this year in our preschool and a school, and growing. Actually, I was
Wow.
growing this building already just 2 years ago.
The school building as well?
I'm sorry?
The school is in the building as well?
School is in the building as well. Yeah. We had our old location of our old preschool, which we thought we are going to sell once we move into here. Then basically we kept it, and that is full and this is full.
Wow.
And then we decided to open elementary. And today we're running out of space in this new building, which 2 years ago people in my community were whispering behind my back, why is he trying to do this? This is more than we need. And who needs such a big building? And he's trying to bite more
Wow.
than he can chew. And in many ways, maybe we did. But today, poo, 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 as us, the superstitious Russians would say, we are we're kind of almost out of space here. And now I'm looking for a
Wow.
school building, which I hope I will
Wow. And it's
find.
all Russian families, the school, the
The
kids from
school
the
is
school?
actually, it's mostly, I would say probably 50-50, and other people in the area. And of course, Rabbi Kaller gave me tremendous, tremendous encouragement and tremendous help, and to whom I feel forever indebted. And he gave me a lot of love and support. But Rabbi Lipsky actually also was very supportive. And he says it's long. When I came, he says it's long overdue that somebody works with the Russian community. How did we get into this? He asked me something.
About the school, the kids' family, Russian families or
Oh, Russian families.
school kids?
So I was coming to work with the Russian community, but I was given a territory. I was never aware of the territory. What is this territory? And I'm actually shliach of 5 blocks. Just anybody who says that the territory limits them. Again, many miracles happen how we found this place, and this is literally a miracle after miracle after miracle, which one podcast probably will not be enough. But with the Rebbe's brachas, we found one spot that was not yet bought by the city or by the major developer. In fact, the place where this building stands today, our center stands, there was supposed to be a 16-story condo here, which was already approved. But then in 2007, 2008, when the real estate busted, to us it was a blessing, because the person who owned this place, unfortunately for him, lost it. We were buying this out of a bankruptcy court. And again, I thought, I was convinced that my Taj Mahal is going to be standing 2 years later. It took 12, if not 13.
Oh, when you bought the property 13 years ago?
Yeah. We bought the
Oh,
property.
wow.
We bought the property in 2011, 2012. Again, we're here already for 2 years, almost. But it was a very long and a very tedious and painful road. 9 years ago, when we already had the land, in 1 year, I lose 4 of my biggest balabatim at that time.
Hmm.
And just like this, don't put your eggs in one basket. It wasn't one basket. It were 4, my number 1, 2, 3, and 4. And one loses business and leaves community. The other two have some other problems, and the fourth also moves. And during that year, my father was also diagnosed with a brain tumor, and I lost my
Mm.
father. And it was
Wow.
Shnas Arboim. My 40th birthday was literally, I thought here we were supposed to come, and now it's going to build, and we would been since the beginning. Every time we are like, and early days of Amazon stock. I don't know these days Nvidia, doubling and doubling and growing and there, but there again, and then just it plummeted, and it took a few years to regroup, to regain. I don't know, regain hope. Even it were very difficult years,
Wow.
and I was just flying to the oil. I think every 2 weeks I just went. I don't know if
Wow.
every 2 weeks. I think that year or the year after, I was just going to the oil again and again and again, and just knocking on heaven's door, on the Rebbe's door, asking for help, and help did come. But it was a
Wow.
it
So
was a
what turned things around, after that, you know,
what turned things around.
crash?
Again, listen, first of all, I remember Tishrei that year. I was sitting in my office hours before Rosh Hashanah. I said, I don't know how I'm going to survive this year. Uh,
Which year are you talking about?
this was 9 years ago. So this is
Okay.
9 years, yeah, 9.5 years ago. Um, and again, it was difficult, but at the same time, I remember walking out of that Rosh Hashanah, out of that Tishrei, saying, no, we're going to survive, because I saw, I didn't have my four biggest balabatim, but other people stepped up. It was not on the levels that it was before. Some commitments were made, but again, just going into the oil and begging for help, and sometimes dragging yourself out of bed when you could not get up. I've had those days, and just going through the motions, as Kalim Reikim Al Tamiti. I can't tell you I had a lot of feeling, or a lot of excitement, or a lot of I don't know, positivity those days. But you go through the motions. You don't get to jump ship. You have to do what you have to do. And little by little, and then one day on Shabbos, when I was sitting in a really bad mood, actually, I remember that, in the back row of my shul, like in the talus, I didn't see anybody, and some guy walks into the shul with ripped jeans and a, I don't know, t-shirt. See, I knew Jew. I got up, smiled, gave him a talus, gave him a sitter. That Jew, um, 5 years later, ended up helping us and giving us the funds to start the construction.
Wow.
And
Wow.
today his late father's name is on this building, and and then others came, and again, it was a long process.
Wow. So
Even even
he was
even
the
few
one that
years ago, when we were still already finishing the building after COVID prices went up, I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't have the money. Overspent probably 20-25% from the initial proposed budget. I didn't know how to finish this building. I was hiding from the contractors, and other miracles happened. You know,
so when, like, when you said after those four donors, left, like, how long did was it till you started working on it again, working on the building?
it was a while.
Yeah, there's like a
It was a while. It was at least, I'll tell you, that happened 9 years ago, and it was at least another. We're here for 2 years, so that's seven. It took us 5 years, maybe 3 years, 2-3 years.
wow.
At least 3 years had to happen in between, and even there were some incredible stories. There were also a lot of disappointments. Interestingly, I remember I brought Rabbi Brod because, remember when I went on shlichus, my first 2 years, I took his fundraising course. I don't think I ever implemented anything he said, but I took it 2 years in a row just to give myself the understanding that it's doable, that I can do it, because I was so scared, and I was so like clueless. So what am I going to do? How am I going to raise this money? And then I brought him because I started helping shluchim with the capital campaigns. And he's, I don't know what he does now, probably the same thing. So he says, let's make a list of all your potential donors. Let's make 3 lines or 3 columns. How much you think is the most they're going to give you? How much you think at least you're going to get out of them? And what's going to be the memutza? So I remember we made it, and he said, based on your annual budget is X, and your building campaign, capital campaign is 10x. If you're raising X and you need 10x, so that's a healthy capital campaign goal. You can do it. So I found that paper. I think I lost that paper a short while after that. And I found the paper a few years ago. And I went through that list.
Okay.
The first 10, I don't think I got anything close to the minimum I thought I'm going to get out of them. Some of them not even in my life. Some of them are not even here. And Me'ayin Yova Ezri. It's interesting that, whatever I was planning, whatever I was, whoever I was putting my hope on, actually not necessarily came through. Not many from those people came on the levels that I expected them to. And then somehow people who I didn't even know, or people who I had zero expectations, did help. So, and the most difficult thing, I guess, was all these years, there were a lot of people who were my friends, people who were my advisory board, people who were supposedly my confidants, and people that I was drinking with and listening to their problems and and having them in my house many, many more times than others. And those people were behind my back, sometimes the biggest naysayers. And that was very painful, and that was very difficult. And listen, the haters will hate. They weren't the haters, but they weren't the believers, and that was very difficult. But you gotta just stay course. Although many times it's extremely difficult, not to despair and not to, I know that maybe, I don't know how other shluchim say, what do you mean? Listen, sure that Rebbe's brachas and nothing else, because literally this whole shlichus and this whole building is literally miracle after miracle. And some of these are my miracles and stories are connected to the trips to the Ohel, and but the Rebbe does his part. The question is if sometimes I didn't give up and just to say, I don't know, it's not going to happen myself. So I think the biggest Rebbe's miracle that
that you didn't give up.
That you didn't give up, yeah, because there definitely were moments like that.
Wow. So looking back, now that it's complete, Baruch Hashem, if you could go back and tell yourself something, tell yourself of, what was it, 7 years ago, what would you tell him?
What would I tell him? Tell him to not neglect his family at the cost of the shlichus, or whatever you perceive at that time is your shlichus, because it's nothing to do. I think that applies to many of us, if not all of us, because many times, shlichus, another Jew, but somehow many times those Jews come before the Jews that are the closest to you, and that's your wife and kids. I would say that, and I'm not necessarily very disciplined with that still. Number one. Number two, what I would tell myself, not to be so sensitive, but it's easier said than done to what people around you and your balabatim are saying or doing, because again, when the people who you think are your supporters and your partners and they share your vision, it's not necessarily that way. You gotta stick to your guns. If you believe in this, you gotta just keep on pushing and not listen to every, to every doubt and everything that's being whispered or said behind your back. And go to the oil.
That's what you would tell yourself. It sounds like you did. You were good at that.
Going to the oil? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I got a status on Delta just from going to the oil. Uh, go more.
Let me ask you something. How those they said naysayers or people that didn't believe that's possible. Ha- n- what are they saying today?
Come on, success has many fathers. Of course,
Uh,
Rabbi. Of course, of
we,
course.
we believed in you
We're
all
the,
along.
we were the ones who supported you. One guy, I have one person who recently was by me and says, "I didn't believe." I'm like, "Yeah, I know you didn't believe. Not only didn't believe, you made sure that everybody else around me also heard that you didn't believe. But at least he had the, I don't know, the
Honesty.
bravery or the decency or the honesty to say that." And yeah, but then there were those that believed. Thank God, making it sound like nobody believed. No, thank God, I had many people that did believe. But another thing I would tell you to tell yourself that you always look at other shluchim. You always look at other people. Oh, they have this. Oh, they have that. Remember coming here 20 years ago, 20 plus years, 24 years ago, young shliach, and around me you were Shulable Harbor. It's like a mammoth of an organization, and it's like some other shluchim. I don't know, Chabad here, Chabad there. Baruch Hashem, Florida doesn't have a shortage of maizdis and big maizdis and beautiful maizdis. And you like this little guy that doesn't know what to do and where to start and where to go. And it's very overwhelming and sometimes very disheartening that you see, people's success and you look at yourself and where am I? Just do your thing. You're going to get there. You're going to get there. Do your thing. Show up every day. Push, push, push. You're going to get there.
It's beautiful.
Or
Can
you
I ask
won't.
you what?
I'm just kidding. You will.
There might be twists and turns, but you'll arrive.
Huh?
So there
No,
may be twists and turns, but
there will be definitely twists and turns, but Baruch Hashem, you'll get there.
well,
Interesting thing,
uh,
many of the people,
yeah.
some other experiences that over 24 years, you have enough of situations where discuss with other shluchim where maybe you were weaker than you should have been. Uh, in I see in the hindsight, 24 years later, that every place where you doubted yourself but you stood your ground, later people come, if you did the right thing and if you stuck to your guns in matters of shlichus and matters of not compromising on your standards, uh, eventually people come around, and even people that maybe at some point, not necessarily every shliach has that experience. I don't know. Maybe I'm not going to tell you I don't have my own, I don't know, graveyard of balabatim. I don't think it's a very large one, but there are people that leave you. There are people that that somehow you don't see an eye to an eye, and you lose support, and it's difficult. You work on people, and you work in relationships. It's painful, but again, without your nose up, in a humble way, stick to your guns, and many of them will come back around also.
Wow. No, it's beautiful. What would you say to shliach that's you know on the on the on the fence about a building campaign? He's not sure. He's a little hesitant. What would your advice be?
Listen, I don't
Your
know if
thoughts?
my advice or if one answer fits all. There's no such thing, one size fit all. I was trying to be, from one hand, when I was starting this, I recognized between myself and I knew I'm climbing, I'm pushing it. I knew I'm pushing my limits. I knew I'm pushing. I honestly did not necessarily know or see where from every dollar is going to come, and I still have a massive mortgage that I'm carrying, and I still don't know exactly how, but it's manageable. Let's call it that. Um, but at the same time, I was trying to be realistically conservative, optimistic at the same time. But I'm speaking to some shluchim, and they say, like I don't know, again from that formula of Rabbi Brod, I have this in this budget. I'm trying to go into building campaign, which is 20x. Like I don't know, I wouldn't do it. So I think everybody should be, again, we're not rolling by the rules of nature. We know that, but I don't know to what extent or at which point you say in simchem alanes. In my particular case, some of the balabatim and some of the people who actually were not the biggest, they will say, "Yeah, go for it, start, and the money will come." I don't know. If you have only 10, 20% of what you need, with 20%, I was afraid to start and money will come. I personally did not start the building campaign until I had 50%, or what I thought at that time was 50%, which later on, with all the money overspent and with things getting more expensive along the way, my 50% ended up being 30 initially. But I think there has to be, Oyer is the Toyo, yes, but it has to be Kelim and Tikkun. You have to be, again, there are some shluchim, there are some head shluchim, there are some big people, holy people, much holier than me, on shluchas for many more years, who do things in a very Toyodike ways. Me personally, I was not ready to do that. And it has to be, I think, a healthy combination of Toyodike aspirations, but Tikkundike kind of abilities. Again, maybe some will argue with me.
Nice. So everything you shared today was like, even with that, saying with that tikkun groundedness, there's still all these challenges that came up.
Many challenges came up. Again, like I said, I knew that I'm pushing it, and I'll tell you more. Sometimes it affects your health. It affects your other things. It affects. It could affect. It just affects your whole life. So I don't know to what extent, and if there is a mitzvah to harm yourself and to put yourself and your family through it. Yes, we are all operating. We are selling an intangible product. That's called Chassidus. That's called the Rebbe. That's called God Almighty. Not intangible. Intangible in terms of, you understand what I'm saying? I'm not selling you a vacuum cleaner.
Right.
And not always it's easier to get people to see what you see, to feel what you feel, and to bring it into dollars and cents that you need to run the masjid and to support your family. That being said, I also think that you have to be responsibly conservative, in my opinion. Although, again, maybe many will disagree, but there has to be a balance between making that leap of faith and at least somehow seeing, at least from somewhere, where is this going to come or how you're planning it. Like I told you, everything I planned and everything I thought where my help will come from actually did not. But at least at that time, I thought it will, and I had concrete people and I had concrete, I don't know,
Right.
aspirations or wishes or plans for them. So a shliach that wants to start a building campaign, if you're doing this at the cost of your sanity, I say don't do it. Yeah, but you're not going to know that until you lose that sanity, God forbid. Um, as somebody who built the building, I'll tell you, if you can buy and not build, maybe I would say buy and don't build. My building experience was extremely painful. It still is, extremely. Also, another thing, if if you, I was trying to save on certain things. Oh, this balabas will give this for me, and this will give that. It seems like a good idea because you think it's going to save you money, but not necessarily. Maybe it's better to hire professionals if you have the money to do so, and not rely on people's kindness, because when it's people's kindness and then it doesn't work out, you lose the relationship, you lose the balabas, and you don't have the desired product. And again, it's easier said than done, because I've tried doing this also on few accounts here. Some worked out, some did not. Um, Speak to other shluchim. Speak to other shluchim if you're shliach in the middle of a building campaign, or you're starting a building campaign, not in the middle. In the middle, it's too late for you. But if you're starting a building campaign, if you're thinking about it, talk to other people that have completed projects, that have their scars and their wounds that they can share with you. So maybe you don't have to step on the same rake, and try to get like the Rebbe would tell people about the health issues, but try to get a second opinion, at least in the major decisions that you'll be making.
Hmm. Wow. So, if you were to do anything, if you were to do it today, other than not doing favors, is there anything that you'd do different?
Maybe I would again, in terms of construction, in terms of creating the building, maybe I would hire additional oversight. Oh, I tell you what I would do differently. Again, but it's easier said saying this now. Uh, Most of the subcontractors that we chose here was the lowest bid. You put it out for bidding, and you get 3 bids or more, and you go with the lowest most of the time. Many times you get what you pay for. So try to find people. If you're building a building, try to find people that have a reputation that other people had positive experience with. It's a tricky field, construction, and I think everybody has their negative experiences with this or that contractor or builder or whatever. But try to find people who have good reputation and good experiences. Um, what else would I do differently?
Anything that you would do to keep your sanity
That's what I'm thinking.
stronger?
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Just like many times you say, shlichus, 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 and then family. Um, I think many of us, if not all, at some points could be guilty of that. Don't think that when you're building a building that this literally took over my life to the point of not learning myself, not davening properly myself. All these things, it takes time till you kind of come back to the right track. Again, easier said than done. Your head is exploding because the deadline is coming up, the end of the month is coming up, there are pay-ups, and you need to pay, and you need to this, and you need to that. If you can afford it, hire professionals who will do. I was too much involved here, and it still did not help me in many ways. So you do yours, and maybe try to micromanage it less. Although, again, I don't know how honest I will be saying this, because I did not do it. I did not listen to this advice. Let go and let God. Let go and let Rebbe.
Beautiful. So you'll take this advice for your next project.
Mirz Hashem. I'll probably make the same mistakes again. It's the rest of us.
Kederech Haolam. Wow. Okay, Rabbi Kaller, thank you for sharing so honestly. Um, about your journey and what you learned. And um, you know, Baruch Hashem,
If this
you're
can
in the
help
building
somebody,
today. You're here to tell the tale.
if I can help someone and avoid the mistakes that I made, uh, I'll still tell you, go for it, do it, but get ready. Whatever your building campaign you think is going to be, it's definitely going to be 20 to 25% more, not because that's how much I overran my budget, but it's going to be more. And again, I was deliberately not thinking about these things, although I knew about it. I deliberately did not calculate how much it's going to cost me to run this building. And that's another thing. Many people think, oh, I'm going to build this beautiful building, and you have the money. It's much easier to build, to raise the money when you have this big sparkling idea in the building than to raise the money afterwards for security, for cleaning, for toilet paper and everything else, and all the breaks and all the replacements that are going to be here. And many shluchim that I'm speaking to, myself included, I did not calculate those things. I did not project those things. I knew kind of vaguely what it's going to be. It's much more. So for me, I decided not to think about it and just to jump in and fight my way out. And maybe that's the way to do it. But if you want to be more responsible, calculate that in advance and know where it's coming from. Because even when the building's already standing, you're still going to be hiding from people like I did 2 years ago. Then to carry this and to go from 3,000 square foot, or 4,000 square foot storefront into 40,000 square feet, it's a different animal and you need to be ready for it, which I don't think I
Wow.
was.
Wow. Okay. Wise words.
I got to run to my bar mitzvah class. So
All right.
thank you very
Rabbi
much.
Alex, thank you so much.
My
And
pleasure.
may this tkufa be one of more menuchas hanefesh
Amen.
and gesund for you, your family, and
Amen.
continued atzlacha in your
Thank you.
shlichus.